Goodwin, and today we are covering Objective 4.1, Right Triangle Trigonometry. We are starting Unit 4, which deals with triangles and using the relationships between the sides to find the side lengths, the angles, distances, etc. So today's objective is that I can label the three sides of a right triangle and use them to find the sine, cosine, and tangent of an angle in a right triangle. So to start, let's recall what a right triangle is. A right triangle is any triangle with this 90-degree angle in the corner. So that is specifically what makes the triangle a right triangle. Now, a right triangle is special because we can label the sides based on the other angles we choose. And this can help us find the ratio between those sides. So for example, I'm going to pick a color, let's do green, and use angle A as my reference angle. So to start, the longest side of our triangle is always the hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse is the longest side of a right triangle, which makes it really easy to identify. It is also straight across from the right angle, like so. So that is one of the sides of the right triangle. The next side is the adjacent side of our right triangle. Now, the adjacent side is the side next to our reference angle. In this case, our reference angle is angle A right here, and the adjacent side is right next to it. Our last side label we can use is opposite. Oops. My bad. Now, our opposite side is the side furthest from our reference angle. It's across the triangle on the other side. Now, these three sides do depend on which angle we choose for our reference angle. So let's say I have another right triangle here. And let's choose this angle as our reference angle. Let's label that angle B. Hypotenuse is always going to stay the same because that is the longest side. But the adjacent and opposite will switch places because adjacent is next to our angle and opposite is across from our angle. So be careful not to mix those up. I know a lot of students get held up on using this angle to pick the opposite and adjacent, but it really depends on which one you're referring from. Okay, so now we know what our three sides are labeled. We can use these to figure out our three relationships. Those relationships are sine, cosine, and tangent. And we can shorten them like this. So typically sine is shortened into sin, cosine is shortened to cos, and tangent is shortened to tangent. Now, when we have something like this, so sine of A, this is saying sine of A, like I just mentioned. And it's not necessarily sine being multiplied by A. It's a separate function being applied to it. And the function sine of A is going to equal the ratio of our opposite side over our hypotenuse. And these are referring to the lengths. So sine of A is equal to the length of the opposite divided by the length of the hypotenuse. Cosine is equal to the length of the adjacent side over the length of the hypotenuse side. And last but not least, tangent is the length of the opposite side over the length of our adjacent side. A good mnemonic to remember these is SOHCAHTOA. SOHCAHTOA. So try to remember this, and this will help you remember our three ratios. Now let's look at an example real quick. So we have our right triangle with the lengths of 3, 4, and 5. We want to figure out sine of A, cosine of A, and tangent of A. So your first step would be to label your three sides. I like starting with the hypotenuse because I know that is the longest side in our right triangle. Then I am going to move on to the adjacent, which I know is next to our angle, our reference angle, which in this case is A. And last but not least, the side furthest from our reference angle is the opposite side. Now that we have our three sides labeled, we can go ahead and use SOHCAHTOA up here to help us put in our side lengths. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Opposite is 4, hypotenuse is 5. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So that's going to be 3 over 5. And last but not least, tangent is opposite over adjacent. So that is going to be 4 over 3. And yes, sometimes your fractions will have a bigger number in the numerator. That is okay. And that is it. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Go ahead, review this video if you need to, then summarize your notes, and then go ahead and take a look at some of the activities in the playlist. Have a wonderful day.